Welcome to State of Wellbeing, a podcast from South Dakota State University. The State of Wellbeing is a holistic well-being podcast with the goal of supporting the campus community as we strive to be a growing, high-performing, and healthy university.
Welcome to another episode of the State of Wellbeing podcast. My name is Kevin Sackreiter, and I am the Executive Director for the Center for Professional Enrichment and Teaching Excellence here at South Dakota State University. And I'm really excited for us to be able to have this conversation focused on financial well-being today. And we're joined by Lorna Saboe-Wounded Head. And Lorna, do you want to just introduce yourself to the audience, kind of your role here at SDSU within the community? And then I'll throw you another question after we do that.
Sounds good. So my title's not as long as yours is, Kevin, but I'm the Family Resource Management Field Specialist, and as he already said, I work for SDSU Extension. And in a nutshell, I provide financial education for individuals of all ages, and my mission really is to empower individuals to become confident in making financial decisions. SDSU Extension is the outreach arm of the university. That means that anyone who works for SDSU Extension provides research-based education to South Dakotans. We cover ag and natural resources, family and consumer sciences, community development, and youth development programming.
So the financial component, the financial world, what is it about that you're passionate about? What brings you to that conversation?
Well, I think the thing that brought me to it is my lack of knowledge of finances as I grew up. And in my young adulthood, in my 20s, just trying to navigate and figure it out. I made a lot of mistakes because I just didn't know any better. And then as I continued to kind of study and learn and teaching, and the key is, I think, just to become confident in making those decisions, because everyone is different when it comes to their finances. And so it's not really a cut and dry thing in terms of how you're going to use the information that you have.
So I don't want to start in a negative place, but I think one of the things that really is helpful in this conversation is to talk a little bit about the challenges that our student population faces from a financial perspective. And I think that probably has evolved over time as well. And the current financial climate and all of those things probably play into that. So just going to throw that question out to you. Like, what are some of the financial hurdles and challenges that you see college students facing right now, that 18, 19-year-old here at SDSU? What are they navigating?
Well, college students, especially, say, the freshmen and sophomores for second year, this is probably the first time they have been responsible for making their financial decisions. It might be the first time that they are responsible for even earning money and using it for more than just some wants, just for fun. I think that I know when I've done financial presentations to college students, a lot of them feel as though, or kind of respond like, well, I've got this under control. I don't have any issues or concerns. But I think I would say in general, college students maybe are challenged with understanding what their expenses are and how to handle those expenses. So for students who live on campus, their food is through a meal plan, but even just making that meal plan work for them so that, one, they actually use that money, or that they make it stretch through the semester and kind of get a sense of maybe how much more they might need. I also know that students deal with frauds and scams. It's it's across the board in terms of age group, but some research studies have shown that young adults lose more money in scams than older adults. Older adults are scammed more, but young adults lose more money. Okay. And what they found is part of it's because there's an embarrassment to it, so they don't ask questions, they don't tell anyone it's happening, and they just maybe fall into that scam. And then I think another thing is, especially if it's a text message, emails, that type of thing, it's just easy to quickly respond and maybe not necessarily pay attention to what you're agreeing to. So frauds and scams are an issue for college students. The other thing I think some students deal with is just paying for college and starting out the semester, making sure everything is covered. And then if it's not covered, that stress and anxiety of making sure it gets covered throughout the semester, getting that bill paid. They can't register for classes for the next semester if the bill's not paid. And just kind of that anxiety that comes with that. Mm-hmm. And then kind of a secondary effect is if they're experiencing a lot of financial stress, they may not be getting to class, or they're not paying attention in class, or their academics are impacted, which we all know then costs more in the end if you have to repeat a class. So I would say, there's probably some other things, but I think those are, or maybe the top ones. I don't like credit card issues hasn't seemed to be much of an issue for college students, because most don't have credit cards. With the Credit Card Act that went into effect in 2009, if you're under the age of, I think it's 18 or kind of college age, you have to have a cosigner. So there's ways to get around that, but most cases that's not necessarily as much of an issue as it maybe was when you and I were
back in the day when they were in the breezeway waiting to pull you in.
Yeah, give you a t-shirt.
Right. So I think that was a really good overview of kind of some of those concerns and those challenges that are out there. I'm curious, are there opportunities for the 18, 19-year-old student population from a financial perspective that might not be on their radar, that maybe they should be thinking about as they're entering into college, as they're hitting, those early 20s?
Mm-hmm. I think what's most important is for students to work on developing their financial habits. Mm-hmm. They're on a limited income or limited budget in most cases. I don't know many college students that aren't on limited budget. And so there's some decisions that have to be made. And I think that they need to understand kind of what's the consequences of spending today. So I came up with a couple of examples. So, Hobo Days, when we're recording this, Hobo Days is coming up, and you always want to have some SDSU gear for that. And Hobo gear or SDSU gear is kind of expensive, in the realm, in the big picture. But if your friends are buying stuff, why wouldn't you? I want to buy some too. I want to be like everybody else, right? And it's a nice celebration. But so you have to think about, if you buy that sweatshirt, which I have a feeling sweatshirts run around $75 or so. So you have the $75, you buy that sweatshirt. What are you giving up? What are you giving up in order to buy that sweatshirt? So I'm thinking of, what would you spend that $75 on, like tomorrow or another day, if you didn't spend it today? So is it a tank of gas? Is it groceries? Is it something that you need for class? So just when just stopping a minute and thinking about, okay, if I buy this today, it's going to feel really good because I'm going to be, with my group and feeling like a part of the group and the excitement and that type of thing. But then, is there something I'm going to need that I'm going to have to go without because I bought it today? Mm-hmm. And that's a hard decision to make. As adults, I think across the board, we need to work on that. But if you are on a really limited budget, you really have to decide, am I okay with going without? And knowing that, today it's a kind of a one-time event. Maybe I can't buy the sweatshirt today because I know I'm going to need that $75 for something later. It doesn't necessarily always feel so good, but being able to make the decision yourself and say, I'm choosing to do whichever option you choose instead of the other option is an important is important. It's kind of a good growth thing, and it should feel good to be able to have that control. So one of my money mantras is, you're in control of your money is not in control of you. Sure. So just, taking that control and making that decision. So I don't know if that's necessarily a good financial opportunity, but I feel like college or in your young adulthood is a good opportunity to really just figure it out, develop those habits, because you'll carry those habits into your professional life when you have a lot more money to spend. Sure. And you'll be able to make those decisions. And even just thinking, if I am, really tight now, very frugal now, I can be less frugal in a few years.
Right. I like when you shared one of those mantras that you have, because as you were talking about developing those successful financial habits, one of the questions I was going to ask you were, what would some of those good financial habits be? And I don't know if there's other mantras you have that you might want to share. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here just a little bit, but
that's my main mantra. The you're in control of your money.
I like that.
But I think it's. And this is hard for people to do, but to think ahead, to think of the future. And that if you go without today, you're going to have something in the future. And part of that thinking is related to retirement planning. Sure. If you save today, then when you retire, you're going to not have to worry too much. But I think it fits in a lot of situations. So having I always encourage students to have some kind of a savings account, like an emergency savings, so that you don't spend all the money that you have, so that you have that backup and can then maybe do that fun thing because you've got that. Or you can, fix your computer or your phone or
those emergency things,
that flat tire or whatever it might be. Part of it is like having some savings and not spending all that you earn, and just being really paying attention to what you're doing. I talk about tracking spending in a lot of my programming, and really just, tracking to see what it is that you're doing. Like, what are your habits? Not necessarily tracking to punish yourself and say you can't do something. It's just, because we're very habitual with the things that we do on a regular basis. I always like to do my caribou coffee example, and I've probably said it on other podcasts, but I really enjoy a good cup of caribou coffee, and there's a caribou just down the street on my way to work. And if I'm not really intentionally tracking and paying attention, I will really help to contribute to the success of that caribou coffee down the road. So
100%. And I think a lot of us have situations like that we have on a daily basis. So you mentioned, like retirement planning, those sort of things. And so where I'd like to kind of go briefly next is, okay, we've kind of talked about those challenges and those opportunities when you're 18, you're 20, you're in college. But as you transition, and you kind of said transition towards adulthood, but as you transition out of that college age, you're in your mid-20s, you're starting that career. What are some of those either mistakes or opportunities that you see happening that maybe we could talk about just for a minute or two?
So the two things that I think of, first of all, is paying attention to your student loans. And while you're in college, really just paying attention to how much you're borrowing and doing what you can to maybe borrow a little less.
Right.
And in some cases, that's good. That's feasible. In others, it isn't necessarily. But you can, looking at your accounts, you can see how much your payment is going to be. Sure. Like every year, you can look and see what your repayment is going to have to be. So really just paying attention to that. And then making, like, once you've graduated, figuring out when you're going to have to start making those repayments and how much it's going to be. Right. Because that might impact what you choose where you choose to live, the type of housing you choose. If your college car is on its last legs, it might determine whether what you get to replace that, or how much longer you might use it, that type of thing, because you do have those. That can be a big expense, and it can be, depending on what your major is and what your job is, it could be a pretty big percentage of your paycheck. And then the other thing is to really understand and learn what your employee benefits are. And those are things like your health insurance benefits, your retirement benefits that are offered, and then anything else. A lot of times there's annual leave or sick leave and those types of things. But with like the health benefits and then the retirement benefits, ask some questions. Talk to the HR at your workplace. Do a little research on your own to understand what is the best option for you. And it may be that when you first get the job and you sign all the paperwork, because you don't know what else, you're like, okay, I'll just take whatever you tell me I should do. But then continue paying attention to it. And after a year, when you can maybe make some changes, just review it. And are there some changes I need to make? And, and talk to your HR that handles those different things so that you can take advantage of that. Because those employee benefits are on top of your salary. And even if you're comparing a couple job offers, look at what those employee benefits are, especially like that health insurance and that retirement plan, because your paycheck might be lower, but those benefits might be a better option for you. So just being able to look at that. So I would say those are the two things, aside from having to actually get a job.
Right. Well, I really appreciate the student loans, all of it, but the student loans component, because if I look back when I was 18, 19, 20, first-gen college student, my parents didn't really know how to advise me through that process. That financial aid offer came, and it was just, just sign it and here it comes. And now when I look back, I'm like, wow, did I need all of that? Could I have made smarter financial choices? I've thought about that often looking back. And so I really appreciate you kind of sharing that, because I think that's something we don't always think about.
Right. And, if you can find some scholarships, if you can have a summer job where you can help offset some of your expenses, if even during the semesters, if you can try to, spend as little as you can so that, you can, just your spending is low and so you don't need as much to spend. I mean, those are going to make a huge difference once you graduate.
Right. So within your role here at SDSU, I know there's a number of resources that you have the opportunity to connect with and share. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about some of those resources that you are connected with that really may benefit our students here at SDSU.
Okay. So one of the resources that all SDSU students have access to is a program called Cash Course. Okay. And this is it's an online personal finance program. It is kind of hosted and owned by the Higher Education Wellbeing Organization, and SDSU has joined that organization in order to be able to give everybody access to Cash Course. It is It's not a game necessarily, but it's something that as SDSU students, you can log on with your JAX email, and it has information about saving, budgeting, paying for college, credit and debt. It has some information even about like work stuff, employment things. And there are articles to read, there's videos to watch, there's forms that you can use to help set up a budget. There's just a lot of good information. So if you're just really struggling to figure out how to, maybe control your spending, you can log on and look at the information about that topic and then really just, increase your knowledge. Mm-hmm. Increasing your knowledge helps you become more confident in making those decisions. And so Cash Course, it's cashcourse.org.
So Cash Course sounds like it's a really great opportunity for our students. And I'm guessing with your role, especially within Extension, there's lots of other resources out there as well.
Yeah, if you go to like SDSU Extension, our extension website. It's extension.sdstate.edu. And under the wellness tab, you can find personal finance. And so I have some different articles on there about various topics. I have a couple of things that are available. One is a program that's called Your Money, Your Goals on Demand. It is a self-paced program. It's kind of similar to Cash Course, but it's not college student oriented. It's for all ages, but it does the same type of thing. It has modules on budgeting, saving, credit, and in managing your income and expenses. And so that's free. There's a form on the website where you can find that information. Once you get signed up and registered, you can have access to it. It's a self-paced type of thing. And then another program that I have is financial counseling for anyone. And there's a form on the website for that. Financial counseling is just an opportunity for individuals to talk about a financial issue and get some help, address some strategies, develop some strategies. When I work with people on financial counseling, maybe we meet one time, go through budget stuff, and we're good to go. Maybe we meet a couple of times just to review some things. I've worked with students on really just managing unnecessary shopping, excess shopping. I've worked with students on just student loan questions, and just a wide variety of topics. And so because it's through SDSU Extension, it's all available for free. Right. So those are good resources. And, I'm available even to, like, I've spoken in different classes. If anybody wants to have a lesson or a session on personal finance or anything very specific about that, I can come in and do that too.
Well, I think that's really a great resource. You, as the resource, is a great resource for us all to be familiar with, and so I really appreciate that. And I know we're getting near the end of our time. One of the things I like to do sometimes in these interviews or these podcasts is kind of wrap up with the question, Lorna, if you could look back, and you're that 18, 19-year-old college student, and you're looking at you then and how things have evolved and all of that, what's that piece of financial well-being advice, that one thing that you'd want to tell 18-year-old Lorna to really be thinking about and be aware of now that you look back?
So I've mentioned this in some of the questions that I've answered, but I wish that I had understood what spending money today and how that impacted tomorrow. I feel like I was a very typical college student. I didn't have a lot of money, and I really just didn't have that concept of saving or not having to spend everything. And it wasn't that I spent it, I had spending issues or anything like that. I just didn't develop that habit or that understanding of the importance of being able to save money for the unexpected things. There's always unexpected things. You never know. Who knows? And it's good things and bad things. But honestly, I wish I would have had someone talk to me and help me understand that kind of the impact of spending today, what that has on tomorrow's spending.
So one of the things that kind of comes to mind for me as you were talking about that is I've often said to folks, if I could look back at 18-year-old Kevin, one of the things I would say was, you've got this plan, but be okay with the plan not being the plan, because how many times things have gone left or right from what I thought it was going to be was really we could make a list. And I think as you talk about things always happen. That really reminded me of that. And if you can financially plan and do that well, it feels to me like when the plan doesn't go the way the plan is supposed to, you're going to be in a better position to handle that in a maybe a financially responsible manner.
That's a really good point. Because when I talk about budgeting, I talk about it being dynamic, and you can, on your Excel spreadsheet have the income column and the expense column balance that out. We're zero, we're good. But there's things that come up. Right. And so part of being able to track your spending, then you can make those adjustments, because Money is not a finite resource. We have what we have. We can earn more at some other point in time, but that doesn't necessarily maybe fix the situation that right then and there. So that's another thought too. It's don't throw out the plan because it didn't work that one time. Just look and adjust the plan, because the other thing is when I work with people, well, I'll point out I'm an accredited financial counselor. That's why I'm certified to be able to provide financial counseling. But when I work with people, I always say, what's done is done.
Sure.
And what did you learn from that?
Right.
18-year-old Kevin learned plans don't always work out, but we don't throw out the plans. 18-year-old Lorna learned that we got to have a little bit in savings and have a little backup, and that there's flexibility, because it's even if this is exactly how much money I have, kind of what you do with that throughout the month or your time period may be different at the end of the month than the plan you had at the beginning of the month.
Sure. No, I think that's a really nice way for us to kind of wrap up our conversation today. And so I just want to thank you, Lorna, for joining us, for being a part of the State of Wellbeing podcast. And again, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And, as questions arise related to this topic, I think Lorna is a great resource to reach out to. And so we'll wrap up on that. But I want to thank everybody for joining us for yet another episode of the State of Wellbeing podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of State of Wellbeing, a podcast from South Dakota State University. This podcast is brought to you by the Mental Wellbeing Team and SD State Health.